This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our first very special Beers and Peers #hospitality proud interview. We are doing a series of interviews with some exceptional hospitality people who have great careers, love the industry, and are very inspirational. And I am so excited for our first guest today. Not only has she been a colleague of mine in two different companies over the years, she's also one of my dearest friends. So I'd like to say hi to Sarah McAnulty.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Really good.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, cheers.
Cheers.
And very special day today, obviously being VE Day as well.
I know. It's nice seeing all the old photographs and everything that have been released. It's really
Oh,
sweet.
so beautiful. Gives you all the feels, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Oh, so without further ado, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of an overview on your career and what you've been up to.
Of course. So I'm originally from New Zealand. I moved to London back in 2007. So I've been here a long time now. And I've been in hospitality in London for about coming up to 11 years. And I originally started with the beast that was Novus Leisure, where I met yours
Woo!
truly. And I have just loved it right from the get go, basically. Um, I moved from, I was at a site in the city, so predominantly worked around the City of London, East London. I moved just across a couple of sites there and ended up also setting up my own company. And yeah, bounced around a little bit, but mostly stayed in the city, and it's where I love. And the square mile, I think, is brilliant, and the way Shoreditch has transformed, it's just been incredible to be part of. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Fantastic. In a nutshell, quickly. 2007, a long time in good old London town.
And it's changed so much, and I think that's what's been great about being in that industry is that it's developed and the skills you've learned, like, I mean, you knew you're at Novus as well, like from the beginning. We've been able to take those right through and help build other brands and businesses, which it's been incredible to be a part of.
Yeah, good old hospitality. I love it. So tell us a little bit more about your story. Kind of when did you first realize that hospitality was the career, the industry that you wanted your career in, and your kind of different roles throughout the years and, what you've essentially been doing within the industry?
So it's a bit of a weird one, really. My parents actually, my dad worked for Lion Breweries, which is a big brewery in Australia and New Zealand. They've now launched in the UK, which is really exciting. And he was sales director for them. And my parents went on to own their own spirits and wine company. So I've always kind of grown up around booze. Um,
Hey.
right. Um, so I had jobs in restaurants and bars through college and university, and I'm a people person, so I love being around people. So I think with hospitality, that's been the biggest thing for me. When I first moved to the UK, though, I started working in casting, and I was dealing with extras for commercials and films. So that was really fun. Got to meet a few famous faces,
Fab.
but that career could only go so far. And I saw an advert for Novus for sales and events managers, and I interviewed and did 2 years at Abacus, which is one of their big sites. And in that time, I learned a lot about business, but I also still got to work with people and I got to lead a team. And that was probably the point at which I was like, I can see a career in this now. And we were very lucky in that company because you had a lot to do with P&Ls and you could see sort of the corporate side of a big hospitality company, as well as working on the ground with like the ops team in your venue. So it opened me up to, or opened my mind up to the opportunities that were there within the sector. And yeah, that's probably where it started. And that buzz that I got from it then, I still have now. So it's, a decade on, it's really nice to still feel like that about an industry and about a role, even though the roles my roles have changed over the years.
Fab. Did you
Yeah.
start off in kind of like sales? Did you ever do more of an ops role? How
So it's
did your
always been
career
sales
develop?
focused. Yeah. Sales and events. And I know some companies now split them, but I've always done both. And I think that's been a really big part of my love for the job, because I'm organized just as a person, and I like doing that sort of end-to-end organization with a client and seeing something through with them. And I think you build relationships that way. But when I moved over to Greens from Abacus, it was actually next door, so they sort of poached me, which was quite nice. Felt really
Flattering.
wonderful. And when I moved over to there, I directly reported into the owner, and it had a lot more to do with development and brands, menus, more how the business ran and how we could make more money, basically. And so from there, I sort of started to progress more towards a senior role, still managing sales and events and being responsible for those teams, but more on a commercial aspect, looking at the whole business, which was really interesting. And unfortunately, that business closed, and I got made redundant. So I decided to set up my own wedding and events company. And that's just wound down last year. So that went for 6 years. So I was director of that. That was a big learning curve, massive.
Imagine. That's big
And
responsibilities, isn't it? Taking it on your own
yeah,
business.
yeah, and growing something, I sort of thought like, oh, if I put this much work in for someone else, what would happen if I did it for myself? And it was great, a massive learning curve, and I learned a lot about myself, and I'm glad that I did it. But an opportunity came up with East London Pubco last year for another sales and events role, but having then taken it on, it moved into much more. And because I'd run my own company, and because I'd sort of had worked quite closely with operations in the past, I sort of sat somewhere kind of in the middle in some aspects, even though everything came back to sales and making the business more profitable. So yeah, it's been a nice transition. I'm definitely more sales and marketing though than I am ops.
Yeah.
So,
In your blood.
yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So I suppose the biggest question, and while we're really here, is what's been your hashtag hospitality proud or proudest moment during your career? Or some of the highlights.
So I think for me, it's not been one thing. It's been a series of things, probably a culmination of the strategies that we've put in place and the ideas that myself and like the people I've been really fortunate enough to work with have come up with, and seen how well that's done. Things from like menu launches at like great cocktail bars to a gingerbread chalet, which was a huge success in terms of putting ourselves in front of, I think the final numbers are around 20 million readership in across the
Wow.
UK. So those things make me proud, and make me proud of the team that I've worked with. But that keeps me going. It's not one sort of goal that I've worked towards at the moment.
At
Ask
the
me
moment.
again 12 months.
We will, don't worry. So going back to sales and marketing, could you describe of what kind of type of sales/marketeer are you?
So I had to think really carefully about this, because I didn't know if there's like a textbook answer. So I did some research, and what I found basically told me what I thought anyway, was that I'm a collaborative salesperson. And I think, without, blowing my own horn, it's stood me in good stead, because I've always focused on what I can do for my customer. So whether that's a brand, and essentially we'd be seen as customers of theirs, but I think the relationship works both ways, or whether it's a corporate client or it's a wedding client, it was sort of, how can I add value to what you're trying to do? And I think from that, and I really saw this when I started at Greens because we launched doing weddings, and I had 100% conversion rate from my wedding inquiries.
Wow.
Yeah, which I'm really proud of. But we were lucky with the venue we had. I mean, it was a grade 2 listed building, so that's nice to start off with. But that's sort of like listening to what people want and hearing, like really hearing them, and then thinking about how what you're offering can solve a problem for them, I think is the best way to sell for me personally. And I think then you build those relationships. So that's been
Yeah.
important. And same
But
with
if it, marketing.
Yeah, I think it's like there's some great ideas out there. And I've certainly had some ideas I'm like, this is amazing. And then actually when you look at it, you think, well, it's not solving anything for anyone. It's not really doing anything. So it's not it's just a task basically. And, is there much point in all that effort if we don't think it's going to make the impact that it should do for us and for whoever we're trying to talk to with that particular campaign? So yeah, I think it's giving value back to people has been my biggest thing.
I love that. Very empathetic and very human. And
Yeah,
hospitality is all about human. So
that's the
definitely a good
thing.
approach.
Yes, I often, and I know we've talked about this before, like the hospitality sector, it's about being hospitable. And if someone came into your house and was like, I've got this problem, and they said they wanted like I don't know, like a smoothie, you wouldn't try and give them a roast chicken. Like it just doesn't listen to what they had to say. So I think if you apply that to your work, it makes it easier, definitely.
Fantastic. That rolls in quite nicely to the old and next question is, where do you get your inspiration from for marketing campaigns, and whether that's menus, whether it's more globally or local marketing, where does your inspiration come from?
All over really. I think that, well, you know me, Carly, we've come up with some great ideas over a few drinks. So that's the best place to start.
Yeah.
Um, but I think one is being relaxed. It's very hard to come up with stuff on the spot under pressure. So I think good ideas take time to develop, and I think that's the biggest thing is sort of getting out of my own headspace and getting out of an office and going for a walk, or I do a lot of reading, like newspapers and books, not just hospitality books and hospitality publications, but just anything. And I get a lot of ideas through that, and looking at what the average person or consumer is currently interested in always helps. And then sometimes it's just stuff that I think's funny that I'm like, oh, that's, and I sort of, like I said to you before, what do you think about this? And if I get a laugh out of you, then I know it's a good idea. So
It depends how
so
drunk I
bouncing
am.
ideas off people is always fun.
Fantastic. And then what would you say has been either your own most challenging moments or challenging moments within hospitality during the course of the years?
So I think the most challenging aspect of hospitality, and it's been certainly this way for me, and I don't know if it is for for everyone, but there's a lot of uncertainty consistently in this industry. The nature of the business is that it ebbs and flows. So I find that I've had to learn. It's been a challenge for me to build resilience, to the natural ebb and flow of the business. So from a sales side and a marketing side, being super busy over Christmas, knowing that January is going to be tough, and not letting that get you down, and still being positive and, performing to the best of your ability in what's always a tough month for the sector. And uncertainty as well, times like this is one of them. But when I was made redundant from Greens, we had 10 weddings on the books that I had to cancel. That was really tough. And it
Yeah.
was trying to find a way in which to do that without, really letting people down, what felt like personally and professionally, even though it was, out of my control. So that uncertainty is definitely a challenge within the sector. But I think it's getting better, and I think people are more aware of it. But my personality type, I definitely have had to build resilience to that, and that's I found that a challenge. But I'm getting better at it.
Good
She
on
said,
you.
with a beer. I'm really good at it.
So talking of uncertain times, obviously we're in very uncertain times at the moment with coronavirus and what's happening globally. How are you finding it at the moment? Like during these times, the lockdown, routine, thoughts, how are you finding it personally?
So to begin with, I felt very down about the situation. I like personally, I've got a 2-year-old, I've got a mortgage, so it was easy to see right from the get-go that our sector was going to be the hardest hit. And everyone's got bills to pay and things like that, so that's just in itself that's worrying. Having said that, though, I am quite good at self-motivating. That's something I've had to learn over the years. So I haven't really let myself fall into too much of a lull. I've written a few articles on LinkedIn. I've spoken to my network a lot, and whether that's like just my family or friends that I'm close to anyway, but also, I hate saying reaching out, but reaching out further than that. And talking to people that I haven't spoken to in a while and being really honest about how I'm feeling. And I felt quite vulnerable. Was one of my biggest things I had to address. But having said that, once I said that I felt vulnerable, the uplift that you get from your friends and your family and those people that you know has been incredible, and that's kept me really positive and motivated. And on the flip side, whilst there's some negatives there, hasn't it been wonderful to have some time, just to gather your thoughts and not be watching the clock all the time, and I'm quite grateful for that, because I went straight back to work after my daughter was born, so I'm really enjoying having quality time where it's not blocking. I've got to do this and then I've got to run here, and you can breathe and relax.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to ensure that we take the positive from it all. So the industry, how can we attract more people? Ooh.
I personally I personally think that, and I've loved all the work that the Hospitality Proud campaign's been doing, and Beers and Peers, and making people realize that this industry is something to be proud of. I think that showing how diverse the sector is a massive one, and showing people career paths. I think we talk a lot about entrepreneurs that have gone out and started their own pub, or they've developed a restaurant, and that's fantastic. But if you're not an ex-chef or an ex-bartender, which I'm not, where's that career progression? And I think we don't talk about head office roles enough, and the diversity within. You might be an accountant and you love eating out all the time. Well, you should go and be an accountant in the hospitality sector, because you have a love for what we're trying to do. And I think we don't highlight those roles enough in that long-term career path. And I think that's, from big organizations right through to small groups, through to how I've led teams before. I think that needs to be a bigger part of how to attract more people long term.
Noted. We shall work more on that with Beers and Peers and get you involved even more. So in terms of, I suppose, balance and work life and home life, how do you deal with sometimes when it's super busy in hospitality and big campaigns are coming up, or the Christmas season's coming up? What are your kind of ways of balancing it all out, and any top tips?
So I don't think I'm great at the balance thing, if I'm honest. I think it's definitely something I need to work on. What I've had to learn to do is to accept, and I actually enjoy this, but September through to end of December, that's it. It's work and it's busy, and I love the thrill of it. So I actually really enjoy that craziness and delivering those events over Christmas and delivering those sales targets. And the first year I was not prepared for it. And then I did 1 year where I didn't do a Christmas, and I was like, this is so boring. What? There's nothing to do but drink. And so I've learned to, my sort of balance comes from the natural flow of a business. So I know then in January that I can take time and, strategize for the next year and revisit what we did well or didn't do well in the last year. And I can use January and those early months of the year to spend more time at home and focus on exercising and creating new habits. So my balance is probably more long-term over the year as opposed to a weekly split. But I'm pretty good at switching off on the weekends as well and giving myself time. Having a 2-year-old that gets you up at 6 o'clock in the morning will do that to a person. So.
Yeah, I'm not envious of that, I'm not going to lie. And that leads really nicely actually into the topic of mental health, which is obviously a really super important topic around the world and very, very important for hospitality as well, when there can be kind of like longer days or, different shift times. So, have you had any experience with mental health? And have you got any kind of like advice out there, any further tips of being able to, take a breather and relax and get through it?
So I think being, pregnant in the industry was really tough. And then having a newborn, I don't think that there's enough women possibly highlighted that have gone back, and there are those long hours. And so I sort of felt alone with that, and I struggled with that a little bit because I was trying to do both roles to 100%, which is, some things got to give. And I think my mental health suffered because I was quite hard on myself about how to achieve everything I set out to. My advice would be to talk more to people, to talk to your peers more, but also to talk to more senior people within your business. Because one of the things that I think the hospitality sector needs more of is guidance within smaller companies, even if it's just one site, on how to help their teams deal with mental health issues, concerns they're having. Because, some bars just have like an owner that's an owner operator, and then they've got a few bar staff, and the owner might have mental health issues because they've got so much pressure on them. And do you pass that on to your staff? And there's probably not that HR influence in there to help. So I think, my biggest piece of advice would be to build a good solid network around you within your company if you can, or with like-minded people. Ask people that are more senior than you if you can talk to them, and be honest, because it does help. And I think sometimes the fears that we have that contribute to our mental health can be just that. They're just fears, and you sometimes need talking down to a little bit just to calm you down and like reset.
Yeah, reset, that's always a good one. I always love how honest you are, Sarah. Absolutely do. And it's, what you say is so true. It's all about talking and sharing and not bottling things up where possible. Okay, so there's a few myths that fly around about hospitality. And I suppose the biggest one that I've looked at the list that I sent over is one that you could potentially nail on the head, where it's a failed job, or you need to go and get a proper job, or all of those myths. And going back to how we can attract more people to the industry and why we are hospitality proud ourselves. And you've worked in the industry and grown up in the industry, and so a lot of people. So this whole kind of go and get a proper job, or it's a failed job, or people can't see a career. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, firstly, it makes me really sad because, I've always been more drinks-led than food-led, and I think pubs and bars are just fantastic places to meet people and get to know people. And when I first moved here, I didn't know anyone really. So going to the pub and talking to people was a real comfort, especially if it's the bartender or someone that, wanted to have a chat with you. So to say to that person that's made an impact on me personally, that's a failed job, well, that's really upsetting. And I think we only have to have had an amazing experience in a restaurant and you come away, like I know you love Hawksmoor, and so do I, and you come away from it and the service and the food and everything's been exceptional and it's lifted your whole weekend or your night or whatever it is. How can a business and the people in it that have had such a positive effect on you personally be in a failed job? It doesn't compute. It doesn't make any sense. So, and I think possibly that comes back to what I said earlier about that understanding of where those careers can go. And I think some people think hospitality is just the floor staff, and it goes beyond that. There's a lot of people, as we've seen with this coronavirus and the amount of redundancies and furloughs and everything. There's so many people that contribute to this industry functioning at a basic level that, to say that there's no longevity in that or it's a failed job or something that you shouldn't be proud of it's very disheartening.
Well, let's wipe all of that out.
Exactly.
We're going to wipe out the negativity. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I suppose the last one is if there are any kind of like blogs or books or articles out there that you could share with people to have a read or a look or a podcast.
Yeah, I've got 3. So my first one, they're all podcasts actually, which I've really gotten into over lockdown. The first one's Humans of Hospitality for sort of inspiration, stories about entrepreneurship and just different brands and how they've grown. I find it really interesting. The second one is The Brendan Show, and he's a high performance coach, and he really helps you sort of take stock of how you're thinking and feeling, and being more positive. And they're not that long, which is great, so you can listen to them on go. And then finally, She Can, She Did, which is about female entrepreneurs in their 20s and 30s, and some of the brands that they've developed and where their ideas have come from. It's those sort of things that help me with coming up with campaigns and marketing ideas. So I really enjoy them.
Fantastic. I have to start listening to podcasts. And also, you have also wrote a couple of amazing articles that you've produced and set up on LinkedIn. So I do ask everyone to go and give them a read because they are fantastic, very humbling and from the heart, and positive of hospitality, that is.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you for being our first guest. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's really fun.
Oh my gosh, and no doubt we'll definitely be catching up for beers once we are able to do so.
You have to wave at you from across the garden.
Yeah. Hello. All right, then. Well, cheers, my darling.
Yes.
And we'll catch you soon. Thanks everyone
Bye.
for
Thank you.
listening. Bye.
Bye.